Came home to the best surprise today. My squat rack that wasn't supposed to be here for another couple days showed up. It is a Cat power rack. I think power rack's a little bit of an exaggeration based on the design, but I'm gonna unbox it, do a quick review of the product. Bought it on Amazon for, I believe it was like $130 at the time. But gonna pop this thing open, set it up for you, and give you my opinion of it. Guys, check out how big and empty this room feels without the bench in it. You never really realize how much space that thing takes up until it's gone. So my first impression of the product is that it's kind of a half-assed packing job. I mean, yes, everything's like packed together pretty tightly, but there's not a whole lot of padding. The only padding I see as of right now is a little bit of foam on the end. So I'm a little worried about stuff being scratched or bent. Only time will tell though. Let's start putting it together. While unboxing the uprights, I noticed that some of them had a little bit of light rust or corrosion almost on the inside of them, and I don't think it really makes it any weaker or compromises the strength of it, but I think it speaks to the quality of the product you're dealing with here. I know it's just a cheap rack from Amazon, but I didn't really expect to see any rust on the inside of the piping. The rack is assembled. As you can see, it's all put together. I actually put it together about 2 weeks before I'm filming this video, just so I got a little bit of time to get to know it, see what I liked and disliked about it. So I'm gonna run through that real quick. Just have a couple pros and cons jotted down, just to inform your purchase if you're thinking about buying it. Real quick, before we jump into it, just want to take this opportunity to plug my channel. If this video helps you either decide to buy the rack or dissuades you from buying it, please just hit that subscribe button. It really helps me out. Additionally, if you have any other questions about the rack, please just leave them in the comments below. I'm super active down there. I'm sure I'll get back to you within like a week, probably within a day. So any questions, please drop them below. Also, stay tuned. I got a DIY cable system video coming for this rack very soon, probably within the next week. So subscribe for more content, and let's jump into the pros and cons. I'm going to start off running through the pros. So number one on my list, I have affordability. So I actually paid $134 for the rack itself, and then you have to buy the safety separately, but I think I only paid like $30 for the safety. So total $164 in the whole. So overall it's really cheap. That's cheaper than any other rack in the market right now. So A+ for affordability. So second on my pros list is that it's relatively compact. So though the footprint is pretty big, because it's a 2-post rack as opposed to a 4-post rack, you have a lot more room to maneuver around it. So in that sense, if you have a smaller space to work with, I think it'd be a really good option for you. Third on the pros list is that it's actually pretty stable. This is something that surprised me just because of the construction and kind of the geometries of it. But for doing both pull-ups and bodyweight exercises on the bar, as well as squat and bench, I was pretty impressed by how stable it was. Granted, I'm not using anything ridiculous weight-wise. I'm not racking 500 pounds on this thing, but for anything up to about 225, I didn't have any issues with the rack wobbling too much or giving me any problem with stability. So fourth on my list of pros is that it was easy to construct. Now anything of this size is going to be pretty simple to put together. You don't need much mechanical inclination to put it together, it's just nuts and bolts. But it took me about an hour to assemble. I included the footage of that earlier in this video, but ease of construction, give it an A. Now moving on to the cons list. So I had a pretty long list going, and I was actually able to shorten it down by saying basically that the material quality and the build quality of the rack are really where it's deficient. Although it only costs $134, so it was kind of what I was expecting in this price range. The welds, the material quality, the finish, just really left a lot to be desired. Granted, I think that's kind of reasonable given how much I paid for it, but my biggest beef with the rack was definitely overall just the build quality. My second beef is that I had to buy the spotter arms separately. So it actually says in the manual not to lift weights with the rack without the spotter arms, but they don't even include the spotter arms in the packaging. You gotta fork over an extra $30 for it. Would have liked to see it. Honestly, I think they'd be better off just packaging it all together and putting it up for $160 with the spotter arms, but I get from a marketing standpoint why it kind of makes sense for them to split them apart, because it makes you feel like you're getting a better deal on the rack, only paying $130 for it. So that brings us to our final question, which is the rack worth it, and would I recommend it to a friend? And the answer to that is possibly surprisingly yes. So I think that for the price of the rack, it's a great deal. The build quality isn't 100%, but it's pretty much what you would expect for a rack in this price range. And ultimately, it's a great option for anyone with a small home gym, people just starting out, and I would highly recommend it just based on that price. I know you can't always get it for that price on Amazon, but if you keep an eye out, they've been popping up for that price and even slightly lower. So keep an eye out, buy it when you can, and if you have any other questions that I can answer about the rack, leave them in the comments below and I'll get back to you as quick as I can. Thanks.